And welcome back to the BST YouTube show. As always, your host, Patrick Kerbler. I'm here with Tim Aiden and Jarrett Slanita. And let me just say this about all of us. We would rather drown with our guys before we ever jump ship. I just want to put that out there, be very specific. We are not jumping ship unlike some people that we know. Is that right, Tim?
That is correct, sir.
We will absolutely go down with the ship.
We haven't even announced that we're remaining at BSD. That's how committed we are. We don't even feel the need for the announcement.
Maybe we should start doing that maybe we'll do it like next off season as like a gag, just like have all our writers just
use the On3 headline like with my face saying staying,
not entering the portal. No, it's good to see everyone. Thanks for all that have hopped on tonight and are watching. And Tim and Jarrett, good to see you guys as always. We have a lot to freaking catch up on, man. A lot of Iowa State guys are coming. Some other guys from other places are coming as well. We'll talk about all that. This is just going to be a very transfer portal centric episode. So let's start with let's hold the Iowa State guys for a little bit, just because we did talk about, if you didn't catch our last episode, we did talk about Rocco Beck. We talked about Benjamin Bramer. We talked about Carson Hansen. At the time, none of those guys were committed, but we kind of knew that they were going to be committed. So we'll touch on them in a bit. But I do want to start us off with the non-Iowa State guys who have committed. So just to run it down real quick, Penn State has picked up James Peoples, a running back from Ohio State. They have picked up Keanu Williams, a defensive tackle from UCLA. They picked up a defensive tackle from Oklahoma State, Armstrong Nadeem, and they picked up a defensive end from Colorado, Alex McPherson. Jarrett, we'll start with you. Which of those guys excites you the most? I think that they're all quality pickups, but if you had to pick one that you're most excited about, who would it be?
The person I'm really excited about is Keanu Williams. I'm just very happy because I think it's something that Penn State's been lacking the last, 2-3 seasons, is just a giant space-eating defensive tackle. And he's, I believe, 6'6", 320, and possibly growing. So it just adds such value to the defense because he's probably not going to accumulate a lot of stats or anything like that. You may not even notice him at times, but you just need someone who can eat up space, that can clog up the running lanes, absorb a couple blockers and prevent them from getting the second level so the linebackers can run free. So I think he's going to be a really valuable addition to the defense, and it's just something that Penn State's been lacking. Seems like they've had more smaller athletic defensive tackles, which is great. Those guys can, get in the backfield and make some plays here and there. But I do think that was kind of lacking when you just have someone just clogging up the line of scrimmage right in the middle there. And Keanu Williams definitely brings that.
Yeah, Alonzo Ford didn't lack for size, right? He was a big guy, but it really has been since, I want to say, PJ Mustipher.
Yeah, that's the last thing I could think of. Yeah, the big space eater that kind of performed that role that may not have accumulated stats, but made everyone around him so much better.
And I do think that people forget, like, PJ Mustipher in 2021, before he tore his ACL, was like borderline All-American. Like, he was really, really, really good.
I think
he was never
that year.
Yeah, never quite this. I mean, he was still good in 2022, but much more of the, taking on double teams and kind of doing the dirty work. I kind of think we see more of that with Keanu Williams. And kind of speaking on the PJ Mustipher thing, with Keanu, that is interesting to watch is he was hurt for most of 2023, had a season-ending, I believe, knee injury, came back this year and, was healthy, was fine, but didn't have any tackles for loss, didn't have any sacks, which you don't necessarily see a lot of out of your one tech or your nose tackles. But I'm interested to, it's always good to get the guy, not the year after the injury, but the year after the injury. So the fact that he's going to be kind of spaced out from that season-ending injury in 2023 is, I think, a good thing for Penn State. And, I know you said his growth potential, right? Is he still getting bigger or whatever it might be? But I think even beyond the growing aspect, it's just him getting farther away from that injury. So excited about that. One of the underrated things about the defensive tackle room in years past, especially last year, was the fact that it just had, I would always say in my articles, grown ass men. Devon Ellies was a 24-year-old. Hakeem Beamon was a 24-year-old, right? All these older guys, and Keanu Williams certainly fits that mold. So Tim, we'll kick it to you. Whether it's Keanu Williams or maybe it's another guy, who excites you the most?
Well, I was also going to say Keanu Williams, and not just the reason. Jared said, but also just because of his name, I think it's cool. We got a guy named Keanu, and I don't know, maybe we'll start calling him Neo or John Wick at some point. If he's
Johnny
Utah, yeah, or Jack Traven if you want a deep cut right there from the movie Speed. But just to be a little different, I'm gonna go with Alex McPherson. Maybe it's because I was recently while eating dinner watching Landon Tengwall break down his film on his YouTube channel, but he's a really shifty guy, has some really good moves, like some really kind of chop style moves, it seemed. And I remember Tengwall specifically mentioned how he seems to have the ability to just teleport over he might be in a in a hand battle with somebody, but he'll just kind of teleport over if there's a ball carrier coming on his side and just sort of be there to make a play on them. And that's really good awareness. There was another play to show where he basically got in front of what would have been a screen pass. The quarterback was smart enough to not throw it there because it would have been a pick. But he's really good awareness and just really shifty, really, really good at hand-to-hand combat in the trenches. So, I think he'd be a pretty effective edge rusher.
Yeah, I was going between Williams and McPherson myself, who was going to pick, because after watching his highlights, I mean, you can tell he just has freakish athletic ability, and just, he was just playing as a true freshman last year.
Yep.
So, someone who's going to really develop, someone who's going to, fill out a little bit more. I think he's like 6'6", 240. So he'll probably put on a little bit of weight himself as well. But yeah, someone who can really develop into a really special defensive end. I think he has that baseline freakish athletic ability to really be something special.
It is funny how, especially nowadays with recruiting, these websites 24/7 and on 3, they spend years and years scouting these guys, right? Seeing them at camps from the time that they are freshmen and sophomores and juniors, and going to games and seeing them their senior season. And it's funny how you gain so much more knowledge about them just by one college football season. Because I mean, very clearly, Alex McPherson, he was a 3-star recruit, decently recruited, but ended up at Colorado, who, and with Coach Prime, recruits well, but it's certainly not the Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, LSU, right, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how he was a 3-star, because like you're saying, great size, 6'6", 240, definitely has the frame to add more weight. Went to IMG Academy, so I know IMG gets some flack, but already coached up. He knows what he's doing out there, but yet has that potential just because of his size and his athleticism. Yeah, he's a guy to be super excited about. I feel pretty damn good about defensive end with him, Granville, and Yevon Kamaju. I would still like one more defensive end. I was really hoping for Northwestern's Anto Saka, but he went to Texas A&M. That
would have been a nice get.
Yeah, that's unfortunately how things happen in the portal.
We got his former defensive line coach on the staff, so
potentially rumored, allegedly, not official yet, but yes, it does sound like we'll be hiring him as defensive ends coach. But McPherson, definitely a quality add, and a guy that has multiple years of eligibility left, still has 3 years of eligibility, including a redshirt year. Just to be different, I'll go with Nadim. And honestly, I kind of I would say Nadim and McPherson are probably my top 2 out of these 4. The thing about Nadim that excites me is that he has 3 years of eligibility left, which I think is low-key a very important part of everything that is happening with the portal right now, right? I know that we're all focused on 2026 and we see a tasty schedule that looks, pretty easy, but Matt Campbell is trying to build this for the long haul. So not just getting the one and done guys and getting guys that have multiple years of eligibility like Indiana did last year. That's one of the things that we are overlooking with what Indiana has done was they weren't just 1-year wonders and then they were off somewhere else. They had multiple years, and you're seeing the fruit of that labor now. But anyway, with Nadim, has 3 years of eligibility. Really liked what he did as a redshirt freshman for Oklahoma State. They were an odd front, so he's playing a lot of nose tackle. At Penn State, it'll be more of a 4-man front. So excited what he can do. I'm not sure if he's more 1-tech or 3-tech. I think he probably fits more naturally as a 1-tech, but I'm interested to see what he can do just because he's completely yoked out of his mind guy. He looks like he would be like a WWE wrestler in another universe. And maybe we can do like an NIL deal with WWE. I know that they have some NIL deals out there, but 6'2", 290, just absolutely like stoutly built. Just think that he's going to be serviceable right away, and yet still has that upside to potentially be, a tried and true starter, his junior and senior seasons, and perhaps even next year. We'll see. But I think they're all quality gets. Any final thoughts on James Peoples? I know none of us mentioned him, but any thoughts on the Ohio State running back that will be coming here?
I mean, I saw him play a little bit, and basically he got surpassed by Bo Jackson this year, so I think that really cut into his expected playing time. I don't know if I watched him enough to really have a good feeling about, what his strengths and weaknesses are, but obviously he was a 4-star recruit at Ohio State, so he's got the potential. I'm just kind of more curious about how the running back room is going to shake out, because you have Quentin Martin and Tiki Hayes returning, who both show great promise. And then you're going to have to help me with the name of the running back from Iowa State. That's Thank you. Yes. But I mean, I was really impressed with him. So I'd just be interesting to see if it's a committee approach, if a couple of those guys end up, getting the hot hand and getting the bulk of the carries, or, I could see that the running back room just going a lot of different directions this year.
Well, Jerry, we have one James Peoples stan commenting here. Shaddy Bell says he's a star. Peoples is going to shock everyone. Well, Shaddy, I hope that's true. I hope you're correct on that. One time will tell. I guess speaking of running backs, I know not to go off script here for a second, but just about maybe 5-10 minutes ago, it was announced that Dante Sheffy, State College running back, just committed to Penn State. 3-star back, racked up 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns in his senior season for State High. And yes, as a fellow State High alum, I am quite thrilled with this news. It's always, for some reason, the previous staff they took their sweet time even giving him an offer. And so he ended up committing to Syracuse initially, and then decommitted back in November. And, he still had Missouri shown a lot of interest. So, this is a kid who was garnering some, was committed to a P4 school and then was still getting like interest from an SEC program. And so it's just, it's good that Campbell's bringing in a guy, a local kid who has the ability to, at least compete for some playing time at the Big Ten level. And it can help if there's any future State High stars who are good enough to play Power 4 football, then, you got a little pipeline going here. Got a good relationship with the local high school. So, can't ignore the townies is what I'm trying to say. So, nice get for Penn State there.
Spoken like a true townie. Can't ignore the townies. If you go to a state borough town council meeting, I'm sure that's said a lot. But yeah, they certainly have the room. I will say that. I can't say a ton about him, but they certainly have the room. And with Messiah Mickens off to Virginia Tech, need for running back was there. So always nice when State College has a legitimate Division I prospect, and he will be coming to Penn State. All right, let's talk about all the Iowa State guys. So last time we discussed, right, nobody was fully committed yet, but the floodgates opened. And I don't know if I like this or dislike this about Matt Campbell, but as somebody who was, pushing out all the articles on BlackStreetDiaries.com, its website, go check it out, and tweeting it out from BSD. Sunday night was a freaking whirlwind of just every 30 minutes. It was like new guy. I will give James Franklin credit for this. He was very strategic about when these things would get announced. Now, he never had something like this where it was like, I have 23 former players that are coming with me. But the James that I knew would have been like, we'll do 4 today, we'll do 6 tomorrow, we'll do 7 the next day. I would have appreciated that. That's
how to stay in the news cycle for sure.
Yeah, that's all I'll say. Just from my perspective, I would have liked that. But I guess my perspective is not taken into account. Anyway, Iowa State. Tons of guys are coming. I think right now the count is 19 or 20 to be exact. We're not going to talk about these guys like in particular, like we're not going to go through each one and give a scouting report on it. But one of the big things that I've seen talked about out there is I think some Penn State fans discontent with the idea of taking this many Iowa State guys. How concerned should Penn State fans be, or how concerned are you with a good chunk of this roster being an 8-4 Big 12 team? Should we be concerned, or do we think that they are Penn State quality? Do we think they're Big Ten quality? Do we think that they can make the college football playoff, win a college football playoff game? Where are we at with taking this many Iowa State players?
So my thoughts about it is, go ahead, Tim.
I'll just say I'm not that concerned, honestly. It's not like Matt Campbell is just literally grabbing every Iowa State player and trying to bring him to Penn State. He's grabbing the best of the best from his Iowa State team. I mean, starting, of course, not to post up all the names, but Rocco Becht and
Rocco Becht, Orson Hansen, Chase Sowell.
Just to name a few. And those are like the cream of the crop from his Iowa State roster. They, guys that you could easily see that could be a kind of plug and play on a Big Ten roster, and like Penn State's and could compete in that conference pretty well. So, it's not like he's taking like reach type of guys, for lack of a better term. So, I know the concern, they went 8-4 last year. Well, they were also dealing with some injuries from my understanding. So, they weren't exactly a fully healthy team for most of the year. So I'm really not that concerned. And, this is just, it's just simply, our fan base, we're not used to this. This is the first time we've changed coaches in the NIL and portal era. Yeah. So it's just, this is how it is when a team changes coaches like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that I don't feel it was a situation where Campbell just like opened the door and said, okay, anybody who wants to come along. We're just going to take their entire roster. We definitely, and by we, I mean Penn State, obviously, but they definitely did a good job of bringing in the top tier talent from Iowa State. So, you guys got guys like Marcus Neal at safety and Caleb Bacon at linebacker, I think are going to be very good impact players here at Penn State next year, and they'll transition to the Big Ten just fine. You guys already mentioned several of the offensive players who should contribute next season. And then after that, there's a few younger guys who are going to be more development. There's going to be a few other guys who, are going to be important, rotational players or depth pieces, or someone you may not see the beginning of the year, but after a couple injuries, once the team's banged up at midseason, we'll be happy that they're on the roster and they can step in there and contribute without too much drop off. So I don't think it's a scenario where we're just going to have this Big 12 roster. I do think we're kind of getting the best of the best from the Iowa State crew. And, to Tim's point, yeah, they were 8-4 last year. They were also very banged up, and all these guys were key that they're coming here were key contributors in 24 when they were a game away from making the playoffs. So it just came down to them, meeting a very hot Arizona State team in the Big 12 championship game. And Arizona State got the bid after winning that game. But, I think that was the first 11 win season in Iowa State history. And again, on the brink of the playoffs. So yeah, those are the types of guys that they're really bringing in here.
Yeah. I mean, Matt Campbell is taking a little bit more than I thought. I originally, I had tweeted out, this was like early December, kind of right after the Matt Campbell hire. So, in an ideal world, I kind of thought, keep 40 Penn State players, bring in 15 Iowa State players, bring in 15 transfer portal players, non-Iowa State players, and then, round up a 2026 class mishmash of, 15 players from Iowa State and, local guys like Shafley that are looking for a place. And that gets you to around 85, 90. I know the scholarship limit has gone up to 105, but I don't think you just want to take guys and having that much, take your time to get to that 105 mark, knowing that the 27 recruiting class is going to be big, the 28 recruiting class is going to be big. So it's a little bit more than I was expecting. I think it'll hurt more of, and this is just, again, it's natural when you have a coaching change, but it's going to hurt more the depth than like the top end talent. Like and I know that we said we weren't going to go through like each player, but like these are all players that I think you could put on like the 2023 or 2024 Penn State team, and they would either be starters or like legitimately like play a lot. Or let's just even say like they could play for Michigan, or they can play for Ohio State, or they can play for any of a number of other college football playoff teams. Rocco Becht, 100% can play in the college football playoff, can lead a team to the college football playoff if the right team is around him. Carson Hansen, yes. I would say Brett Edelskin, yes, I think so.
Really
intrigued by his potential being only a true sophomore. Chase Sowell, maybe not as wide receiver 2, but yes, I think that guy is a wide receiver 3, even wide receiver 4. Absolutely. Ben Brahmer, 100%. Gabe Burkle, their other tight end, I think so as well. I won't necessarily talk about the offensive line because honestly, I can't say that I've watched a ton of Trevor Burr and those guys in the offensive line. But even then, going over to defense, Marcus Neal, safety, absolutely, and Caleb Bacon. I think Caleb Bacon. I mean, I think Caleb Bacon is better than Amari Campbell. Like I truly, honestly do, or at least they're on the same level. So, right, that's what 5, 6, 7 guys that I think could pretty easily fit on a college football playoff team. And I think, like, unfortunately, what is the case for Penn State right now is yes, reaching the college football playoff is a goal for 2026. I don't know if that can be like the full-on expectation the way that it was in previous years, right? Like this is going to be, I don't want to say a slow build, but it's going to be a build. They fired James Franklin because they were okay with the rebuild. And yes, Penn State has an opportunity with the schedule. They have an opportunity with some of these guys that they brought in, but I'm not so much concerned with the starters and their level of quality. Like I think Penn State's first like 25 or 30 players will still be pretty good and capable of going 10-2 and going into the college football playoff and maybe even winning a game in the CFP. But I think it's the depth behind that you're just not going to have built in, which is unfortunately for Penn State or not. Maybe they've never really had it, but like the days of just having like depth on depth on depth, like it just doesn't happen anymore in the transfer portal. Absolutely. I mean, Notre Dame has lost 15 players in the transfer portal. Ohio State, their fan base is freaking out because they might be losing 20 plus people if they don't get their NIL right. So depth is becoming fewer and farther between. It's more about, making sure that it's almost like these NFL rosters, right? Top 50, making sure you pay them and that's set. So I'm interested to see how like Matt Campbell recruits and is able to improve on the depth. Obviously that doesn't mean too much for 2026, but I'm not greatly concerned with a lot of the Iowa State guys that will be starting here. I think it's pretty normal to expect that Penn State can still go 10-2 with, some of these Iowa State guys sprinkled in throughout the roster. So we'll see.
I will say one thing I'm concerned about, and maybe not so much concerned as unsure, is just how the offensive and defensive linemen from Iowa State will look here, because that's, just the line of scrimmage play is much different in the Big Ten than the Big 12. Just look at Texas Tech-Oregon game on New Year's Day. Texas Tech was clearly the class of the Big 12 this year, and they got shut out by Oregon's defense. They couldn't open holes. They couldn't really do much of anything. So I do kind of wonder how they'll adjust in that regard, since we are taking quite a few offensive linemen, and if they're going to be ready to play in the Big Ten, or they're just not going to have what it takes. So that's kind of something we'll have to wait and see. And I'll say I'm just not as confident that the offensive linemen will transition as well as, Neal and Bacon, some of these other players we've mentioned.
No, 100%. And I want to say this as well, like beyond the on-field perspective of all this, like, and we've talked about this in the past, like this idea of what Matt Campbell is trying to build, like the culture and getting buy-in. And part of that is bringing in these Iowa State guys who understand how he operates and who are already going to be bought into him. Like that is going to be a big thing in the winter. And it's very interesting that there is no spring transfer portal, because a lot of these Penn State guys that are, signed up or signing up to stay with Matt Campbell, there is no out. There is no, never mind. I don't really like how this guy had us train in the winter. I didn't like spring practice. I'm going to be entering the portal. Once January 16th comes, everybody is locked in and they are stuck here. it is going to be Matt Campbell's job to get the buy-in, but it's also like just that normal human team bonding aspect of things that is going to be relied upon as well. And I think that bringing in guys that are familiar with how things operate and run and getting buy-in from them, should hopefully, right? The idea is that will also help get buy-in from the rest of the roster too. So yes, on the field, all that stuff is very important. Matt Campbell's going to have to win, but kind of where that starts is going to be off the field, and instilling that culture is going to be important too. Jarrett, one of the things you mentioned was just, when we look at the roster right now, kind of the holes are on the offensive line, and I do want to talk about that. Biggest holes in the roster. And Tim, I'll kick it to you. If you had to pick one spot right now, right? Let's pretend so I saw that Mark Cuban is now fully bought in on Indiana football and NIL, and he's donating to their fund, which is why they're now getting everyone they essentially want. It's them and Texas Tech that run college football now. Let's pretend you are Mark Cuban, Tim. You have a $3 million to spend on one player in the portal, or one position. I won't say player in particular, but you can go to Matt Campbell and say, hey, here's $3 million, spend it on this position. What position do you think you would want to spend it on, knowing what Penn State has right now, right? They have a quarterback, but beyond that, where else are you looking?
I mean, I feel like quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. I feel like those spots are pretty well and secured. I mean, I would either throw something at experienced offensive lineman, or someone on the D line. Even I know we got a few guys out of the portal, but maybe we could get one more who's like a truly established stud. Safety's another possibility too. Dejon Lane leaving after saying he would rather drown with us than jump ship.
I have no idea who's Dejon Lane. I'm not familiar. Never heard of that guy.
So maybe go get a stud safety. I know you got Marcus Neal now, so maybe that's not feasible, but assuming that they wouldn't have a problem coming in playing with Marcus Neal on the roster, then
yep,
I would also consider that.
Jarrett, same question for you. One position. You are Mark Cuban, except you graduated from Penn State and graduated from Indiana. Where are you telling Matt Campbell to spend your $3-4 million?
I'm probably ponying up for the best tackle available on the market. Honestly, best offensive tackle you can find. I am a little bit worried just all the attrition on the offensive line. And it's just one of those things you don't know until they start playing and how everybody's going to mesh together. And if some of these guys can make the leap to playing nastier, more physical defensive lines in the Big Ten. So that's one of those things that, if you're not that great at the line of scrimmage, it can really wreck the season pretty quickly. It's going to limit you on both sides of the ball. So yeah, I'd go with the best tackle I could find, but if I had Mark Cuban's money, I'd be definitely ponying up for lots of people. I'd be looking to do what Miami did, and why they're going to be playing to get in the national championship tomorrow, because they really focused on both lines of scrimmage and did a great job building up there.
Yeah, it is interesting when we look at the college football playoff: Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas Tech, and Miami. 4 programs that have really from the start have owned the NIL space. I mean, Texas Tech, I guess, a little bit more recently, but maybe there's something to that. I would go in order. Left tackle. I do have, in a weird way, a little bit of faith in Anthony Donko potentially doing the left tackle thing. It definitely feels like a move would happen during the Joe Paterno era. He was good at right tackle, just move over to left, and everything seemed to always work back then. It was oh yeah, All-American, top 10 pick now, like Levi Brown. I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore, but I have some faith in Donko potentially doing it. I don't think that's ideal, though. I really would like to keep him on the right side. And again, if I had Mark Cuban's money, I'll just go buy a left tackle. So left tackle, I would still love a legit number 1 defensive tackle. Problem is there's not a lot of those guys out there, and those guys go crazy expensive. So don't even know with Mark Cuban's money if we could do that. Still another defensive end, kind of mentioned it earlier. I like the 3 young guys that they have now in Granville, Kamaju, and McPherson, but one more tried and true starter to really fill out the 2 deep. Safety, especially depth. I think that's very clearly a hole now that Lane has gone. I mean, even depth prior to Lane leaving was a thing, but getting another starting quality guy there is going to be important. And then wide receiver, I still would like, I think, one more wide receiver. I know that we're all in on, Kobe Howard and Eskelson and Sowell, but still a little bit too much unproveness for my liking. I would like to get, again, not like this whole go and get a wide receiver one, because those guys generally don't enter the portal. They stay at their school and then they go into the NFL after 3 years. But just another, another experienced veteran who has 40 catches, somewhere. So those would kind of be my 5 positions: wide receiver, safety, defensive end, defensive tackle, and left tackle. I think everywhere else is pretty solid. I mean, corners need some depth. Basically everywhere needs some depth. I think Penn State right now is at, I did the numbers earlier, they're right around 70 scholarship guys. So that's including the incoming recruiting class. So you're still looking at like another, 20, 25 guys to fill out the roster. So it's really depth at every position, but I think those are the 5 that I would really clue in on as far as starters go. All right. Last thing that I want to talk about tonight, it's just like navigating this new age of college football. And we talked about it a lot tonight, just the reality of what this all is. There's Penn State's maybe going to retain 35 guys, 40 guys if they're lucky. That means that I would say, right, like 50, 60 players from the roster are going to be completely new. This is completely new territory for Penn State fans. Tim, as you mentioned before, like we have never gone through this during the transfer portal era of, seeing more than 50% of your roster go. How are fans supposed to navigate this, especially Penn State fans? And Tim, I'll start with you on that.
Well, like I said before, this is new territory of Penn State fans. It's understandable that, and I kind of noticed maybe from reading the message boards, I can kind of tell who's adapted like mentally to the landscape and who hasn't. Just based, when those that are freaking out every time some player enters a portal from Penn State, and or when we've added all these Iowa State guys and they're wondering like, oh, why are we adding all these, Iowa State guys on the roster? Or why are we, just like, oh, can they compete in the Big Ten? Just, just it seems to be a lot of concern about depth, which, as you alluded to, Pat, this day and age, you're not just going to be able to stack like a 3 deep of talent. That's just not going to happen. I mean, you can, like I said, you can have maybe 50 or so like quality guys. It's like an NFL roster. So I think some people I think are adjusted to it and others clearly aren't, but I would just say, look, those who may not be not sure what to think. I mean, just don't freak out when you see a Penn State player at the portal, and I would just embrace those who do come to Penn State from somewhere else. I think you said earlier, it's not says about these guys not being real Penn Staters, but I mean, look, you come choose to play to Penn State at Penn State, you're a Penn Stater to me. I don't care if it's for 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years, but you're a Penn Stater.
Jared, how about you? Thoughts on this new age of college football? Again, this has been going on for other programs for quite a bit of time. I mean, even like looking at like Ole Miss, for example, right? They see attrition all the time. Like Quinshon Judkins, like their star player in 2023, right? Leaves and goes to Ohio State. A couple of years later, they're in the playoffs. But how, as a Penn State fan, are you adjusting to it? And what would be your message to Penn State fans that are maybe struggling with it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate, excuse me, that we've been sheltered from this for the last few years since the portal really kind of opened up, became a regular thing. Because basically how the portal's been used at Penn State is we reinforce a few positions of need, and we lose some players that are buried in the depth chart, and we're going to go to, the MAC or go to an NC State or a BC or somewhere to get some playing time. So we're not really used to just getting, most of us, it's good news, or it's guys who are just leaving for a better opportunity who Penn State's not necessarily going to miss on the field. So I always knew this year would be coming at some point where we'd have a completely different roster. I mean, just my hope it's not going to be a regular thing, and I'm sure it won't be. But yeah, it was bound to happen at some point. So, you know what? I will say that even if you don't like this or you think it's just too much turnover and just too much unfamiliarity with the new team, and I totally get that because I think that's one of the biggest joys of being a college football fan is watching guys develop, seeing how these guys kind of come out of nowhere, guys who were unknown, in August, all of a sudden October, they're one of the best players in the nation, or even watching a guy like a Deshaun Hamilton or Tyler Warren gradually get better year after year until they're stars their senior year, or even like a Carl Nassib, who, was kind of an unknown to a rotational piece to all of a sudden the best defensive player in the nation. So I do get that you're kind of missing out on that. But when the season comes and you see them running out of the tunnel and you're hearing the fight song and they take the field and score that first touchdown and everything, the excitement's going to be there. If you're a Penn State fan, you're not going to think about, oh, I wish King Mack was on the field right now, or I don't know Caleb Bacon that well. Who's this guy running around making tackles? I'm not familiar with him yet. So I just think it's one of those things that right now it's just something we're just not familiar with. But give it time. Once the season starts, good or bad, we're going to be just as enthusiastic about the season next year as we would be, even if it's with a lot of new Nittany Lions. It'll just be more players we'll just get to know more about and get to appreciate more as the season goes on.
Yeah, I just want to address Brooklyn USA's comment here because I heard Chris Buchagnani from the obligatory PSU pregame show say this recently.
Chris, big time listener to the show, by the way. Thank you, Chris, for the support.
Oh, shout out, Chris.
That was real. Sorry, maybe that sounded sarcastic. He tweeted about the BSD guys. So just wanted.
Oh no, I wasn't being sarcastic. I mean, I believe you. But anyway, so Chris is making this comment too. If you look back at old Penn State rosters, it's probably about 35 to 40 names at most you even recognize, and that's true. If I went back and looked at some roster from 20 years ago, for example, I'm going to see, names that I definitely recognize. But then you look a little further down the 2-3 deep and then be like, oh, who is that person? Or who's this person? And those are the kinds of people, those are the people that are mostly the ones entering the portal, usually for Penn State. And so, especially in this day and age of college football, those are the people that want to get their chance to start or see significant playing time. And if they can't get it done at Penn State, then they'll go somewhere else where they can.
This is a complete aside, and it's the stupidest thing in the world, but this kind of made me think of like when I was a kid, you go to Beaver Stadium, you get like the programs and they would have like the pictures of the entire roster, like
all the headshots.
My favorite player, and I'm going to share my screen. Let's see this one. I just liked how he looked. He looked so happy. Do you either of you remember that guy? Could you tell me his name? If you do, I will give you 1,000 BSC bucks.
Can you give me a hint on what years he played?
He was early 2000s. I remember. Maybe I'm wrong on this. I remember him being from Exeter, PA. My understanding is he never actually played at Penn State, actually.
Okay, this guy. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
His name is Jimmy Mitchell.
Yeah.
Tight end.
Loved. I honestly couldn't tell
okay.
you.
Nothing comes to mind. Yeah, I might be thinking of Cordell Mitchell actually. So never mind.
Yeah. No, Jimmy Mitchell. He was just I loved his hair, smiling guy. Always was like, this guy needs to play. By
the way, question for all of us here. I like this one from Liquid White Aerospace. Thoughts on landing one of the Ohio State wide receivers that have hit the portal? I believe he's referring. There's a guy, Quincy Porter.
Mylan Graham is in as well. He was another guy that Penn State recruited at one point. I would like Quincy Porter, former 5-star from New Jersey. I think that the competition is probably going to be fierce for him, would be my guess. And I don't know if Matt Campbell, right? I think Matt Campbell is in the stage right now of again, installing the culture, building the team. And I don't know if part of that is going to be bringing in like outside guys and paying them more than everyone on the roster, or more than a lot of guys on the roster. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I think like, and this actually kind of like takes us back to what I was saying about like the new, or what I was going to say with like navigating this new age of college football. I think that Penn State fans should take solace in the fact that like Matt Campbell is going to try to like do it the right way. Like this is not going to be an every year thing. Like Matt Campbell is way closer aligned with like James Franklin on, what college football should be, transit or what was it? Transformational, not transactional, right? He's much more of that than other guys that maybe Penn State could potentially hire, like a Eli Drinkwitz. Whether that's good or bad for like Penn State, like winning a national championship, I don't know, right? That was one of the things we talked about James Franklin, that maybe has a little bit too much loyalty to guys that he recruited and wasn't like as aggressive in the portal. So maybe that's a bad thing. But I think if you're yearning for the years of keeping 85% of your roster, keeping 90% of your roster, I do think that is something that will come back to Penn State, because I think that Matt Campbell is going to really, really preach that and instill that and recruit those types of guys. He's going to recruit at a higher level here for sure than he did at Iowa State. But when you look at Iowa State and like who they've lost in the portal, it wasn't a ton of guys to better schools. Like I know like last offseason they lost a defensive tackle or a defensive end to Texas A&M, but other than that, it was a lot of guys just going to San Jose State or to FCS to just play. So I do not think this is our new normal. And I would like to say like, eventually the NCAA will get a hold of this thing, or the conferences, because let's be honest, the NCAA is not going to do anything. The conferences will get a hold of this thing, and it'll be, you have your 5 years eligibility, you have one free transfer, and that's it. Who knows when this is going to come at this point, because this is going on basically 5, 6, 7 years of this, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. So who is the leader that is going to stop it? I don't know. I think it's going to have to be the conferences and the networks, and they seem to be fine with things for now. But from a Penn State perspective and a Matt Campbell perspective, like this is, I don't want to say necessary, but it's also like what we asked for. Like we wanted James fired. We wanted a new start. This is part of the new start. It can't just be you fire James Franklin, you get to keep his whole team, you bring a new coach. That is not how it works anymore. That is not the age college football that we're in. So this was always going to happen. I think all in all, Penn State has done a pretty good job of, retaining, I don't say the important parts of the roster, right? Like most of the starters and most of the people that guys know. And you build from here, right? Like the guys that are going to be in the 27, 28, and 29, et cetera, recruiting classes, you're going to see more retention with that, because those are going to be guys that are coming to Penn State to play for Matt Campbell. So it's all temporary. Enjoy it. I guess I'll say enjoy it while you can. I definitely understand. I know, Jarrett, you kind of talked about on BSD today, transfer portal fatigue. How are you guys feeling with that? Are you, we're 5, 6 days into this transfer portal stuff. Are you sick and tired of all of this, or are you excited about, Penn State's got another commit?
I'm not fatigued or sick and tired of it, but I am more overwhelmed and just like not certain about what things will look like next year. I feel like I really have to digest everything before we even have, like, if you want to talk about what do you think Penn State's record would be next year, I don't know if I'd have a good answer for that or have a logical reasoning behind that answer right now. So it's more just like just familiarizing yourself with the roster to begin with, and kind of figuring out how the pieces are going to fit together and what some strengths and weaknesses are. So it's not so much fatigue, it's just like the overwhelming, transition and just kind of not knowing or having a good feel of what to expect from next year, like we typically would at this time of year. Although, if you look at last year, we were expecting a national championship, and look how that turned out. So even when you do know who's all coming back and who isn't, things can definitely go sideways and go in a totally different direction.
Yeah, it's funny. I was trying to fill out a depth chart last night just to like get a gauge of stuff, and then I got the safety, and I was like all right, Marcus Neal, Jamison Patton, Babu Torre, and I was like, that might be it. Am I missing anyone? So yeah, I think, like you said, overwhelming is definitely like the right word. Not that it gives me like anxiety because like Penn State will fill out its roster, but it is very weird being like, as a fan, right? You are like, man, I would like to have more than 3 safeties, even though it's a reminder that it's only day 5 or day 6. Tim,
I've
how
seen
are
an
you doing?
11-1 prediction in the chat, fellas. So we got some optimism in the fan
What was
base
that?
here. I see an 11-1 prediction in the chat. So
Tim, how are you doing with portal fatigue? Are you tired of all this yet, or are you still excited?
well, I think I was initially excited last weekend when all those Iowa State guys were committing. And it was funny. I remember right after we went off the air doing our show where we're anticipating all these guys, like you put a thing in the Slack channel, basically like all hands on deck. Let's get a bunch of pre-writes for these Iowa State guys. And, we had them all ready because like within a few hours. And then I think that night is when they started coming in. It kind of reminded me of that. I don't know if you guys have seen the show, The Pit, but it reminded me of like the mass casualty event from the first season.
I can't say that I'm familiar with the show at all, so I can't.
Maybe someone who's watching this or listening to this knows what I'm talking about. But
Tim, I brought up Jimmy Mitchell. I'm sure yours is way less obscure than Jimmy Mitchell, so you're good.
Yeah. So true. Point taken. But yeah, so at this point though, I'm kind of ready for this to be done with. Like, I think this goes on until next, the 15th, 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of ready for this to be done with. And then
Sean's found the show.
All right, cool. Marty
Moore.
Finished.
Definitely not Sean. That is not his name. His name is Marty Moore.
So where was I? Yeah, like I'm kind of ready for this just to be done, so I can then just step back, take a look at who all is on the roster, and maybe I can start to get a better idea of what we have. Although we might know a little more when we get to spring practice and whatnot. And obviously we won't know for sure until next fall, but at least once the roster's set and the schedule is set, because we know who we're playing in the Big Ten, but we don't know, when.
Yeah, well, they always announce that like December 10th. It's usually like the week after the Big Ten championship, and they just have not announced what the schedule is, which is, I don't know, weird. I mean, maybe they are just waiting for transfer portal season, because Washington, for example, I think Washington is probably going to be viewed as a top 15 team with Damon Williams. Now, maybe not so much. I will say.
By the way, Pat, did you see who Washington's courting in case Damon does leave?
I did. Bo Prabila.
And Penn State, for those of you who don't know, Penn State's going to Seattle next season to take on Washington. So maybe a game to potentially circle if the.
I don't know if that one has as much heat as it would have this year, right? Just with the changes in the coaching staff and stuff like that. Still will be interesting. Central PA, I'm sure will be pumped for that. A couple things before we leave. One, I'm so happy that there is no spring portal, because I really couldn't do we finally have a roster and then it gets set and then you have like 7 or 8 guys that are like, never mind, this sucks, I'm out of here, can't do it, sorry, you're stuck with us. Want to bring this comment. I think we're still 40 players short of 105. Yeah, that's like right. The difficulty in all of this, and Jared, I know you were mentioning this earlier, like trying to, usually at this point where you have like a decent idea of what Penn State will be, right? Like last year, this time we were thinking, I mean, they were still playing, but we were thinking like national championship and stuff like that. And right now we're like, we don't even have 5 safeties on the roster. We can't even do a 3 deep. So there's still just so much more that is going to happen over these next 9 days until the portal closes. And then that's just for entering the portal. After that, you can still, right, you don't have to sign with the team on January 16th. You just have to enter it by then. So I know you still have to be in class by a certain point. I don't know when that is. So it won't go too much longer into January, but I'd say we still have a solid 2 weeks left of all this as they as Leonard Brady points out, still going to sign a solid, 25, 30, maybe even up to 40 people. Last thing I do want to share, not an image file, I want to share my screen, and I want to share, this is really great audio by me. I want to share this. This was from Pete Thamel. He did a story on Rocco Becht when Becht committed to Penn State, and I'll read it for those of you that are watching or listening on Spotify and Apple Podcast. He's also excited, he being Becht, he's also excited to see his old head coach Campbell in a new place. He said that they strived to win the national title at Iowa State, but it was a hard environment to compete at those highest levels. And this is a quote. We were listening to him talk yesterday, and something about him changed, Becht said about his head coach. He's got the resources and people behind him and a program behind him to do what he wants to do, compete for a national championship. If that doesn't get you pumped up, I don't know what does. The fact that these guys have, Rocco Becht has been tied with Matt Campbell for years, and the fact that he, came to Penn State, visited at Penn State, and said, there's something different. There's something different going on in this guy's head. That's make you excited. So again, all of this is a reminder that it's a long haul. It is not it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So I know we all have great hopes for 2026 just because of the schedule, but I'm excited for everything that will come from the Matt Campbell era. So fun times. Fun times. All right. Any final thoughts, guys? I forgot to ask people to subscribe to the YouTube channel, which, by the way, last episode we got like 60 or 70 subscribers just from asking. So seriously, thank you.
We're at 665 subscribers as of right now. So
yes, we need
can get us to 700 after we sign off here. I know
yes.
there's another 30 plus out there of you that could. I see 28 of you are watching us live right now. So check to see if you've subscribed already. If you haven't, please do so.
Yes. I do have one quick question before we part ways with you guys.
Sure.
Who's going to be the national title game?
Oh, I'm gonna say Indiana, Miami.
I'm gonna say Indiana. Indiana Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to Indiana, but
I agree. Thank you,
yeah,
Sean.
Marty's on Indiana Ole Miss. I think Miami is the better team, but I still don't know if I can trust a Mario Cristobal coach team, even though they just beat Texas A&M and Ohio State, and I've been talking about their offensive and defensive line all season long because I've been really impressed by them. So I think that's a winning formula in the playoffs, but there's something about the Ole Miss team that just feels like they just really rallied around each other with all the Kiffin circus, and the way Trinidad Chambliss played in that Georgia game was just unbelievable. So he can go up there and keep making plays and throw to a wide open Trey Wallace, who it turns out, as we mentioned in the last show, he can get open with the right quarterback and the right offense. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go on the record and say Indiana Ole Miss, even though I've been talking to Miami for most of the year.
The thing with Miami,
not just say it, Jared. There's a part of me that wants to see Ole Miss win it all, just as like a giant FU to Lane Kiffin.
I'd be very happy to see that for sure.
Yeah, the thing with Miami is impressive to go into Texas A&M and beat Texas A&M, and then to beat Ohio State. Like, I did not see the Ohio State thing coming at all. Their offense has sucked royally in the playoffs. Like, it has not been good. It has not been efficient. I know there were some wind issues with the Texas A&M game, this was a historically great Ohio State defense. So I understand all that plays a part. Ole Miss just feels like they got that magic right now, and Trinidad Chambliss in particular. We've seen so often in NFL playoffs, the quarterback just gets hot. I think back to like Joe Flacco with the Ravens. He just had that 3 or 4 game stretch where he legitimately was a elite quarterback. Chambliss, not to compare him to Joe Flacco, because maybe two quarterbacks that couldn't be more different, but Chambliss just feels like he's got that right now. How is that guy at Division II? That's just crazy.
He won the national title last year, so I know totally different ball game, but that experience probably is worthwhile. Even if it's a completely different skill level.
Yeah, we'll see if he wins. I mean, right, won the Division II national title last year as the quarterback, and then he wins Division I national title as a quarterback. Talk about like sports records. I know it's not like a record, but like sports feats that I don't think we would ever see again. Like that is crazy. So, all right. So I said Indiana and Ole Miss. Tim, you said
Indiana, Miami.
And Jarrett, you're saying
Indiana, Ole Miss.
All right, so we're all in Indiana. Okay. Well, who do we think wins the national title then?
I think Indiana.
Okay. I'm going to go Ole Miss. I'm going Ole Miss.
Yeah, Indiana just seems their defense is just so disciplined, and it just seems like they're just always like in the right spot where they need to be. And right now, like Fernando Mendoza is just the way he just reads the defense and gets the ball to the open guy. And then it also helps that every single one of the receivers in the roster can just, has a limitless catch radius and can make every circus catch that anytime there's a ball in the area, as we know all too well, unfortunately. Yeah. I just think Indiana's on a mission, and I don't think any of the four teams are like the three other teams are going to be enough of a match for them.
There's one of those teams that just when they absolutely need to come up with a clutch play, to win the game or salt the game away, they just come up with it. So I don't see that changing at all. So that's why I'm picking them to win it all.
All right. So we got two Indianas and an Ole Miss. I think, we'll definitely, the national title game isn't until the following Monday. So we'll definitely be on before then. So if we want to change our minds, we certainly can, and we'll know for sure what the matchup is. So we'll see. When will we be back is the question. We got to get that figured out. I might have some outside guests on as well to talk about the portal, just because, again, we could be here for hours and hours and hours talking about all of this, and things are changing all the time because some people are saying that they'd rather drown their guys before they jump ship, but yet they're jumping ship. They're jumping ship. So we'll be back at some point in the next couple days, either some point this weekend or certainly early next week. But there's just too much going on. We can't take too many days off in between. So we'll be back. Thank you guys as always for listening and for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel as we asked before. Make sure you're liking the videos. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, give it a 5-star review. The YouTube people are kicking the Spotify and Apple Podcast people's butts because I know for Spotify, I'm still like the only person that gave it a rating. So Spotify people, come on. There's hundreds of you out there, not thousands, but there's hundreds of you out there. Go and give us a 5-star review. All right. That's all I got. Until next time, we will see you later.